Stop me if you've heard this before, but the Sacramento Kings got killed by the three again and again and again and again and again and again and again.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
And again and again and again. Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all season long. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off of your first purchase. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports anchor and reporter for ABC 10 News. And as much as I love my job, as much as I love the Sacramento Kings franchise and Kings basketball in general, I don't know if I can do another 31 games of this. Just death by three-point defense almost every single night, all season long, regardless of trades, coaches, whether teams, buildings, arenas, same story every night. The Sacramento Kings lose to the Portland Trail Blazers 108-102, and the 108 might fool you into thinking that the Kings defensively actually had a pretty good game. Well, they didn't. The Blazers just don't score very many points. The Sacramento Kings are supposed to, and yet they only scored 102 in this game. The Blazers entered tonight 25th in the NBA in made threes a game, averaging just over 12 made threes a game, 12.3, and 27th out of 30 teams in the NBA in three-point percentage, averaging a percentage of 34.4% from three a game this season. Tonight, the Portland Trail Blazers made 16 threes, 4 more than their average, and shot 40% from three, which is 6% higher than their average. Now, those numbers aren't astronomically bad compared to last night when the Kings lost to the Orlando Magic, the team that was 30th in the NBA in three-point shooting percentage at 30% on average per game. The Kings gave up, 52 or 54% from three to them. So it wasn't that bad, but it was still their three-point defense that killed them. Anthony Simons, this season, is a 36% three-point shooter. That's pretty solid, right? That's pretty solid. It's nothing to roll your eyes at. He averages 3 made threes a game. Tonight, he had 30 points, made 8 threes, 8 of 12 from three-point range. That's 66%. And oh, by the way, the Orlando Magic that I mentioned, yeah, now that they're not playing the Sacramento Kings, suddenly they can't shoot the three anymore. They were 5 of 31, 16% from three tonight. Again, this is not just bad luck. The Kings are the common denominator here. Teams constantly shoot well against Sacramento, not because, and I know it feels like this sometimes, not because the basketball gods are against Sacramento, because the Kings are against playing perimeter defense. Like that's the reality of the situation. Like, this team will not go anywhere until they can learn to defend the three consistently. Because it doesn't matter who they're facing, how good of a three-point shooting team they are. They have confidence because they know they're going to get looks against the Kings, and someone, if not more often, someone's on the other team end up having a hot shooting night that the Sacramento Kings have really struggled to overcome. And then there's the Kings offense side of things, right? This has been happening all season long too. The Kings struggled from three-point range. 10 of 30 from three, 33%. 102 total points tonight. 21 assists, which is 2 fewer than their blowout loss to the Orlando Magic. So second game in a row where I know I'm fully aware that the Kings are incorporating new top guys, from Zach LaVine to Jonas Valanciunas tonight. I am aware that takes time, and I'm not trying to jump the gun and overreact and act like these guys have been playing together for years and suddenly are terrible together and cannot play basketball. But we talked so much and we heard so much about the addition of Zach LaVine, right? Plugging him in. This new group is supposed to be dynamic, great offensively. And in the 2 games so far with Zach LaVine, they're averaging 106.5 points per game. That's really, really bad. Again, I'm not putting it all on Zach because you're incorporating him. He's new. And we'll talk about Zach a little bit more later because he looked like he was more comfortable tonight, certainly, than he was last night in the loss to Orlando. But it still wasn't good enough. And it's not just him. It hasn't been good enough from DeMar DeRozan. Hasn't been tonight. Definitely wasn't good enough from either Keegan Murray or Domantas Sabonis. Malik Monk was a little bit better. At least he stayed out of foul trouble, but wasn't good enough from him. Like offensively, that is the strength of the Sacramento Kings. We know this team is not going to defend the 3 for you know what. They're just not going to. It's just who they are. So offensively, they have to be great on a nightly basis. And 2 games in, they're averaging 106.5 points per game. For context, and I know this is going to piss some of you off, but deal with it. In the 10 games of checked out De'Aaron Fox, when De'Aaron on the floor was hurting his teammates, was hurting the Sacramento Kings. I heard it. I read it after every single game, even the games the Kings were winning. In those 10 games with checked out De'Aaron Fox after he returned from his hip injury or glute injury when he was hit hard in the air by Jaren Jackson Jr., the Kings were averaging 118.4 points per game. Even if De'Aaron Fox was not shooting the ball well himself, even if De'Aaron Fox was not scoring 25, 26 points per game during that stretch, De'Aaron being on the floor, having the constant threat of De'Aaron being able to attack the basket, score from the mid-range, defenses constantly have to worry about where number 5 is. That has a positive impact on the Sacramento Kings. And over these 2 games, as good as DeRozan is, as good as LaVine is, and as much as belief I have in Malik Monk as a primary ball handler and facilitator, it is clear that defenses are not nearly as concerned or afraid of the Sacramento Kings because they're not constantly having to keep an eye on where Fox is at any given time. Even if you think Fox was playing half-assed, and at times he was playing half-assed, half-assed De'Aaron Fox is still worth a lot of defensive attention. The Kings don't have that right now, and they're struggling because of it. Again, I believe that a lot of these issues that the Kings offensively are dealing with, the guys getting comfortable playing together, learning how to play off of one another, especially when it comes to like LaVine and Sabonis' 2-man game and stuff like that. I believe that is going to improve with time as these guys get more comfortable together. The problem is time is not on the Sacramento Kings side, right? This offense is supposed to be a strength of the Kings, and they have not shown it yet. And they don't have the luxury of, hey, maybe let's wait till they get some practice time together. Hey, give it a couple of weeks and maybe they'll start to really gel and get comfortable with one another. Y'all, they're in the thick of a Western Conference playoff race now. That's the reality of when you make moves at the trade deadline. This is not an off-season move where they have a training camp and preseason to get used to each other. It's now. We got to go. We got to win. We got to score now. And I know the Portland Trail Blazers have been playing really well right now. They're the hottest team in basketball. They've been playing fantastic, and defensively, they've been playing excellent too. I give the Portland Trail Blazers full credit for the way that they're playing. But the reality of the situation is, if you want to be serious in the Western Conference, you have to be beating the teams that are beneath you in the West, especially when you're in 10th place right now. It's only 5 teams underneath you. You have to be beating those 5 teams. And the Kings blew an opportunity tonight. This is the second time this season they've lost to the Portland Trail Blazers. I think. I'm pretty sure. Let me double check that just to make sure. It feels like they've lost to them twice. They beat them very early on in the season. Yeah, they've lost both games in Portland this season. Again, no disrespect to the Portland Trail Blazers. Chauncey Billups has that team playing really, really well right now. They're an exciting young team that the Kings have to be afraid of in the years to come for sure. But right now, the Kings should be beating them and should be scoring more than 102 points with this freaking roster that they have, even with how good a defense the Trail Blazers are playing right now. The Kings fell to 10th tonight. They have the same record as the Warriors. And the Spurs, who are in 12th, who now have De'Aaron Fox, by the way, with Victor Wembanyama and that entire core that they didn't have to move to get him, they're only a game and a half back. So while they're taking their time to gel together, hey, let's get more comfortable. Let's get some practice time together. Gee, guys, it'll all work out in the end. Everybody is circling you because you're vulnerable. And every team is watching the Sacramento Kings tonight and every night going, oh, yeah, they have Zach LaVine. But we're not as afraid of this offense as we were with Fox there, number one. And number two, we're damn sure not afraid of their defense because what defense? Just the reality of the situation. Speaking of defense, Keon Ellis. I see people talking about it all over social media, in Kings forums, everywhere. They're absolutely right. The Kings need to find a way to have Keon Ellis on the floor, definitely to close games, and maybe considering starting. With how horrendous this team is defensively, they need Keon on the floor. They do. Anthony Simons absolutely torching this team. Keon Ellis not on the floor down the stretch. And I understand Doug Christie's dilemma. Who do I take out? That's a really, really tough question. I think a lot of people impulsively, and I think Deuce and Mo were talking about this on the pre and post game show tonight on the Kings broadcast. Malik Monk, to me, no shot. Keon Ellis is not ready to run the offense. Zach LaVine is damn sure not ready to run the offense in his soon-to-be third game here in Sacramento. DeMar DeRozan can't. You can run the ball through Domantas Sabonis, but he's not a point guard, and he's not going to be able to get downhill, attack the basket, and draw defenses in and touch the paint. Malik's the only guy that can do that at a high level on this roster right now. So you're not moving Malik Monk out of the starting lineup. You're not moving Keegan Murray out of the starting lineup, in my opinion, because that feels a little redundant. Hey, we need more defense, so we're going to move one of our best defenders in and move our other best defender out. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. And Keegan is needed to guard forwards. We saw what Keon Ellis tried to do against 6'10 Franz Wagner last night against Orlando. And no disrespect to Keon, but he couldn't guard 6'10 Franz Wagner as a 6'3 guard. So you need Keegan out there. So that's a no. Domantas Sabonis sure as hell no. So what does that leave you? DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine. It has to be one of the two. And I don't want to be the one to make that choice. And I do not envy Doug Christie to have to make that choice. But I think at some point he's going to have to make it. And maybe it's one of those things where he, at least with a closing lineup, he makes it on a nightly basis with who has the hot hand at the time. But my God, the fact that we're 2 games in and we're already talking about this with the two guys that are most familiar with each other, DeRozan and LaVine spent years together in Chicago. And here they are in Sacramento, and 2 games in, we're talking about, hey, you need to have one of them off the floor so Keon Ellis can be in so you can play a little bit of defense down the stretch. It's almost like it's a roster construction issue. What? No way. A roster construction issue? You mean when we changed from Mike Brown to Doug Christie, who's also a defensive guru and is known for his defense back when he was a player? You mean to tell me that didn't fix it? You mean to tell me that getting rid of one of the best two-way guards in the league in De'Aaron Fox, regardless of how you feel about him, and replacing him with Zach LaVine, who struggles defensively, that didn't fix it? You mean to tell me getting Jonas Valanciunas, who's 7'1" and is an absolute beast in the paint? I was really excited, and I really liked Valanciunas' debut. I'll talk about that a little bit later on. But he's not defending the perimeter at all because he's 7'1". You mean that didn't fix it? This roster is poorly constructed. It is flawed, and at best, this Kings team can win a lot of games by scoring a lot of points and put a Band-Aid on the problem and hopefully get through the remainder of the season and maybe make some sort of playoff run. But that's best case scenario at this point. And hopefully this team is capable of that, but I don't know. These first 2 games, I have not been inspired at all. Like I said at the top of the show, today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by Game Time. If you're looking for tickets to your next big event, whether it's a concert, a comedy show, or of course a sports game, finding the right ticket at the right price can be a headache sometime. But with Game Time Picks, it's never been easier. This is how it works. Game Time Picks is an app that does all the hard work for you, right? You pick the event that you want to go to, and it sifts through thousands of tickets and shows you only the best deals so you don't have to waste your time searching through the endless tickets that are available. And they give you different options based off your price point, right? It's not just, oh, here are the best deals for courtside seats starting at $400. No, it's Hey, they have those best courtside seats they can find. Hey, these best middle of the line. Oh, hey, even the best like discount or nosebleed tickets. They have all of them. They'll show you the best deals on all levels so you can find exactly what you're looking for your budget. The curated deals make it super simple to find great tickets at a great price. You can get super deals for prime seats, and the value it's an absolute steal. You're going to be shocked. Plus, the seat view feature is a game changer. Before you even hit buy, you are going to know exactly what your view is going to look like from whatever venue you are at. And the best part, you're covered with the game time lowest price guarantee. If you find a better deal anywhere else, I'm telling you, you won't. They'll refund you 110% of the difference. Plus, your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time with easy cancellation options if something comes up. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So let's talk about the new guys a little bit. Zach LaVine. I know I was kind of hard on the guy the last segment, and I want to make it very clear. I don't fully blame Zach LaVine for this at all. He is the type of player that he is. The Kings wanted him. They've valued him, but they brought him in, and what we can't expect him at 28, 29 years old in the prime of his career to all of a sudden be a different type of player just because we need him to be for the Kings now. It's just not realistic. Zach LaVine is the type of player that he is. We've known he's had these defensive inefficiencies. Offensively tonight, he looked a lot better than he did against Orlando. A lot more comfortable, but he still, of course, has a ways to go. 22 points tonight, 8 of 19 from the field, 3 of 9 from three-point range. He had a couple catch-and-shoot corner threes that were absolutely pure. Like, those are his money shots. If you can get an offensive rebound like Sabonis got a couple of times, kick it out to him in the corner, or you move the ball and swing the ball around the perimeter and he gets some space in the corner to catch and shoot, it's nothing but net. The three-pointers that he's been struggling on is kind of the straightaway pull-up isolation three-pointers off the dribble, which I've seen him be able to knock those down. Those will start to fall, hopefully, a little bit more too. But those are the shots that show me, hey, you're getting used to this offense. You're trying to incorporate yourself. You're trying to make something happen here. So the catch-and-shoot threes are what the Kings need to try and generate more with Zach LaVine. In addition to that, I thought he did a nice job playing off of screens, especially Domantas Sabonis and Jonas Valanciunas screens and getting downhill, getting to the basket a couple of times. He looked a lot more comfortable with Sabonis just one game later, which gives me confidence that a week from now, 2 weeks from now, that the two of them will be more comfortable playing together. But the reality is, if you are going to feature heavy minutes of LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, and Malik Monk, somebody has to step up and be the guy on a night. It doesn't have to be the same guy every single time, but somebody has to step up and be the guy. Because tonight you got 22 points from both DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine, and you got 21 points from Malik Monk. That balance is nice, right? It's nice to have three players that are capable of scoring 20 or more shots, but it puts a ton of pressure on everybody else to keep up. Once again, the bench gave you next to nothing offensively. Domantas Sabonis had a quiet game, 10 points, 2 of 6 shooting from the field. I don't care what Sabonis is dealing with, whether it's foul trouble or tough matchups, DeAndre Ayton, whatever. He needs to be taking more than 6 shots. Did have 14 rebounds for the double-double. Keegan Murray, 12 points, 5 of 10 shooting from the field. He was very involved offensively in the first quarter and faded away again, a common trait of Keegan's. But DeMar, LaVine, and Monk all took combined 55 of Sacramento's 88 shots. So it's great that all three of them on the surface, if you take the context away and on the surface you see, oh, hey, you got 20s from those three guys. On the surface, you're like, that's great. That's solid. That's a good team effort. But in reality, when those three guys are taking 55 of your 88 shots, that means all three of them are probably not having the most efficient shooting nights. And that was the case for the Kings, right? Malik Monk, 8 of 20. Zach LaVine, 8 of 19. DeMar DeRozan, 9 of 16. That's pretty good. DeMar DeRozan's shooting percentage was pretty good, but Zach LaVine and Malik Monk took a lot of shots, didn't hit a lot of them. So you have three guys that are in the low 20s in scoring. On the surface level, you're like, yay! But in reality, not great, because all three of them were taking the majority of the shots, and none of the three of them really had a standout performance that the Kings needed, and hence they scored only 102 points tonight in a loss. So the Kings need to do a better job the three of them need to find a way to be able to coexist and get theirs. But the Kings are going to need one of them to be a high 20s, 30-point, flirting with 30-point scorer on any given night, I think, for the Sacramento Kings to have any hope of long-term success this season. I was very happy with Jonas Valanciunas' debut. Very excited when we heard that he was going to play, and I thought he proved his worth and his value to this Kings team immediately. Tonight he had 6 points, 2 of 8 from the field. I like that he was not afraid to put it up. 5 rebounds, 3 assists, played 17 minutes, including a very long stretch of time from the 6:53 mark of the third quarter to the 9:24 mark of the fourth quarter. Valanciunas played the entire time. Domantas Sabonis did not play. It was because he was in foul trouble at the time, but the fact that the Sacramento Kings have a capable center in Jonas Valanciunas that could play 17 minutes, that could give the Kings a chance still after Sabonis fouled out in the final minutes of the game. Like that is extremely valuable to have. It's a welcome sight to see. Did the Kings win the game? No. Was Valanciunas perfect? No. But Valanciunas is more than a capable center, and to have him in those backup minutes is a huge asset for the Sacramento Kings to have, and I'm sure a huge relief for Domantas Sabonis. We saw the value of that right away. He sets really solid, firm screens to free up guards and shooters. You could tell they were really enjoying that, especially Malik Monk. I think he's going to be really, really solid for the Kings. He's not going to save them. He's not enough to save this team, right? It's going to take the top of the roster. It's going to take the starting 5 to truly save this team and maximize the potential of this group right now until they can really make some changes this offseason. But I think Zach LaVine is going to be a really reliable, solid option that the Sacramento Kings have at those backup center minutes. I still stand by my belief that that was a really, really good move by this Kings front office. Today's episode of Locked On Kings is also brought to you by Prize Picks. Basketball season is heating up, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with Prize Picks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With over 10 million members and billions in awarded winnings, Prize Picks makes it easy and fun to turn your sports knowledge into real money. The way it works, you pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000. Yeah, that's a real number. 1,000 times your cash. Prize Picks even has a free pick for the big game where Patrick Mahomes only needs to throw 1 yard. No catch. That's it. It's real. Patrick Mahomes throws 1 yard. One of your picks is already correct. You're halfway there. Pair that with one more, and you're cashing out. There's so many ways that you can play with the Sacramento Kings, whether you're looking at Malik Monk's assists on a nightly basis, Domantas Sabonis' rebounds, Zach LaVine's 3-point makes or overall points. So many fun and unique ways to play, whether it's specifically with the Sacramento Kings or a bunch of different games in the NBA, or hey, maybe partner the Super Bowl with some NBA games, whatever you want to do. When baseball comes back, you can do it too. There's so many fun ways to play on Prize Picks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $50 instantly after that first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, tag your game. Don't forget that today was actually the NBA trade deadline for the Sacramento Kings, and compared to earlier days, it was a more quiet day for the Kings, but they did make one more move. I told you to keep an eye out. I did not think the Kings were done. They were looking for some wing help, and they found some. They acquired Jake LaRavia. I almost killed myself there. Jake LaRavia today from the Memphis Grizzlies. He is a 6'8" stretch forward shooting 44% from 3 this season. Now, for his career, he's a 36% three-point shooter, so he's having a really, really good year this year. He's also doing it on not the highest volume, but still a very good three-point percentage so far this season. Gives you the belief and the hope that while he's out on the floor with that second unit, because he's going to provide depth, he's going to come off the bench, he can hold down that wing position, that backup 3, backup 4 spot, relieve Keegan Murray a little bit, be able to continue to space the floor. He's a solid rebounder, and he's good enough defensively to hold down the spot better than Doug McDermott, right? He's a better defensive version of Doug McDermott. I don't know if he can catch fire from 3 the same way Doug McDermott has this season, but he's a better defensive player. He's coming from the Memphis Grizzlies, who are, of course, known for the way that they play defensively. By the way, he played 21 minutes a night for Memphis, so it's not like he was some scrub that didn't play. Like he had a good, solid, consistent role with Memphis, and that's a good Memphis Grizzlies team. He was able to play there. So the Kings bring him in. Hopefully he'll be able to help space the floor. He'll be able to help defensively, give the Kings a little more size, again, 6'8". And it really only cost the Kings Alex Len and Colby Jones to go out and get him, which means that the Kings now have 3 open roster spots. One of them, I think, is destined for Isaac Jones. Isaac Jones, one of the Kings' 3 two-way guys. He's played really well this season. I think he's going to be converted into a full contract. I think he's deserved it. So in my opinion, like one of those 3 spots is going to be his. The Kings, as of now, have 12 guys on their active roster. They need to get to 14. So they have to fill at least 2 of those 3 spots. Again, one I think is going to go to Isaac Jones, and that means free agency and the buyout market. The Kings are going to be keeping their eye on that, and they need a point guard. They need a backup point guard. And I was looking at free agency, not the buyout market, just free agency right now, and seeing what point guards were potentially available. It ain't great. Not gonna lie to you, it is not great. I mean, here are the best names that I could find. Some of them you'll for sure recognize, like this guy, the pizza guy, Isaiah Thomas, IT. I personally think it's that ship has sailed. I know he's obviously back in the G League trying to work his way back in, and he puts up a lot of points, and he's an exciting scorer. And of course, he's got a soft spot. Or a lot of Kings fans have a soft spot in their hearts for him with how he started his career here as the last pick in the draft. I mean, you have an issue with being able to defend the perimeter, and you want to bring Isaiah Thomas in. Like, he can score a lot of points, but he's not helping with that. But hey, if you just want to keep scoring with reckless abandon, maybe Isaiah Thomas is someone to take a look at. There's Dennis Smith Jr. Elfrid Payton. I don't hate the idea of Markelle Fultz, but this is what we're talking about, the pieces that are potentially available. Now, I know on the buyout market, like Reggie Jackson is going to be bought out by the Wizards, I think. Is it the Wizards that are buying him out? I think it's Washington. Regardless, Reggie Jackson is going to be available on the buyout market. I think the Sacramento Kings should absolutely be making a call and trying to figure out if they can bring him in. I don't think they're going to be the only team to do so, but maybe they can do just enough to bring him in. They also have, I think, $2 million of wiggle room of cap space right now. So they can't offer a ton. They're going to maybe a league minimum deal or slightly better than a league minimum deal. So Reggie Jackson, someone to keep an eye out on. I know there's a belief that Ben Simmons is going to be available in the buyout market. I don't think the Kings have much of a prayer of getting him. Other teams are going to be interested, and other teams are going to go out and get him, so I'm not holding my breath for that. But, I mean, it's another name out there that could be interested in. But pay attention to the buyout market, because the Sacramento Kings have to pay attention to it, because they need to find some help for Malik Monk. It's just clear to me Devin Carter's just not ready. He's not ready. He made some good defensive plays tonight, had some halfway decent moments. The shot looks horrible. He's just not ready for a team that's trying to win right now. So you need to go out and get some backup point guard help if you can find it in the buyout market or one of those names in free agency, which probably doesn't excite you. So the Kings are back in action on Saturday inside the Golden One Center. They're hosting the New Orleans Pelicans. That name should make you twitch a little bit, because remember, the Pelicans beat the Sacramento Kings 6 times last season. Well, the Kings are 1-0 against the Pelicans so far this year. That's good news. In fact, 3 of their next 4 games are against the Pelicans, with a meeting with the Dallas Mavericks, the new look Dallas Mavericks. In between that, Anthony Davis, I'm told, will be good to go, or should be good to go, to play in that game. And after like that, so those are your next 4 games, right? You get the Pelicans 3 times, the Dallas Mavericks in between it, and then you're at the All-Star break. They're definitely winnable games, although I would not take the Pelicans lightly, even with all the crap that they're dealing with this season. Right, they still are a formidable opponent. They still have length and athleticism, which the Kings struggle against. As long as CJ McCollum is playing, they always have a chance, because CJ McCollum cooks the Kings every single opportunity he can. So the Kings have to be aware and recognize that these are good games to pick up, and these are good games to figure things out on the fly while also getting wins, hopefully. But these are not easy games by any means, despite how the Pelicans season is going. That Dallas Mavericks game, of course, going to be a tough one too. And then you have your All-Star break, and then you come out of your All-Star break. You have 3 more potentially favorable matchups. You have the Warriors and Hornets at home, followed by 1 more game in Utah against the Jazz, who we've already beaten 3 times. After that, though, buckle up. At Rockets, at Mavs, at Nuggets. The San Antonio Spurs come to town for De'Aaron Fox's return. At Clippers, then at home versus the Knicks. At the Warriors, at the Suns, then at home versus the Grizzlies and the Cavs. And then a few days later, The Kings have a back-to-back against the Boston Celtics and Oklahoma City Thunder on March 24th and 25th in Sacramento. There is a very, very real chance that if this team can't figure things out quickly, they are going to get buried during that stretch. Buried to the point where now we're talking about the final few weeks of the season. Now we're talking about games 70 through 82. The Kings will be in very, very, very big trouble and really struggle to make any kind of noise unless maybe they're just barely sneaking into the play-in at that point. I'm not predicting that. I'm not trying to be doom and gloom. I'm just telling you, they got to figure this out quick. They have to use these next 4 games before the All-Star break and those first 3 games after the All-Star break to figure their crap out, because after that, the real work begins. And teams are going to kill them if they continue to play the way that they're playing, especially with their perimeter defense. Not that I think that should get any better, because it hasn't gotten any better for years. So why would it suddenly get to better now? I don't know. We'll see. All right. Again, I'm sorry to be a Debbie Downer. I do not think, truthfully, I do not believe that this roster is as bad as the way that they've played these last 2 games. I just don't know if I believe they have enough time to figure everything out together. I think they're flawed. I think there's a lot of short-sightedness in the construction of this roster. The capability for them to be exciting, the capability for them to be fun. But if they're not able to figure out how to be that quick, by the time they do, could be too little too late. All right, your thoughts on this Kings loss in Portland, your thoughts on 2 games of Zach LaVine, Valanciunas' debut. Tomorrow, the Kings will hold a press conference for Monte McNair, LaRavia, and Valanciunas at 2 o'clock. I will have the full press conference for you. I will upload that here to the Locked On Kings podcast page so you can listen to it or watch it in its entirety. So keep an eye out for that tomorrow. And then Saturday, back in action inside the Golden One Center. So I look forward to seeing you for that. Appreciate your support. Can't wait to have you join me on the next episode of Locked On Kings. Until then, my name is Matt George. You've been listening to the Locked On Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.